or two. But then, that question, the answer to that question means nothing without actually acting on it, which is the big problem that we have with, say, like a movie that whose name that we won't say but starts with an S and rhymes with Egret. And talks about, what do you want in life? Oh, let's just think about it and it'll happen, right? And, it all starts with thoughts. It all starts with, right? But then it comes down to you got to take action. What's the vehicle? How are you going to make it happen? And so that's the other thing is, number two thing is she came up with, so Julie Powell in the movie, she comes up with the idea, I'm going to write the cooking blog. I'm going to go through this cookbook. I'm going to put it out, I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to write. I've done some writing. I can do this. And then she took action. She took bold action. And I love it. There's that moment, her and her husband sitting down, she's starting the blog. She's like, okay. And her husband's like helping her with like this and that and the other. She's like, okay, here's the title. Here's the subtitle. And then bam, here's the first post. And she kind of just puts it out and like, I don't expect, but here it is. And this is what I'm going to do. So let's see where this takes us kind of thing. And it's like, that's the kind of attitude because you know what? Yeah, there's a lot of variables that can happen. And maybe the idea would have ended up being a horrible one. And maybe it ended, and it ended up actually quite well for her. But, maybe it would have been a lot harder than she thought. And it probably was. In fact, it definitely was at time. They addressed that in the movie and all these things. But the point is that she took the action and she kept taking action because everybody listening to this, we don't know what the circumstances of your life are, and we all have our own individual challenges, and we all have the different things that we're trying to achieve, and for some people, success, quote unquote success, or the big payoff happens very quickly, seemingly, and for other people, it might seem like it takes a long time, but because all those variables can't be predicted, the one thing that we can tell you that will get you there is taking action and just keeping at it. Because you know what? Something is going to happen. Even if you got to shift gears, even if she had to come up with another idea, she would have learned something. I mean, we've said this a million times. We don't have to say it again. But, at some point, you got to ask yourself the question, what do I really want? And then the second thing is you got to take some form of bold action. And guaranteed that action's going to be scary. And I bet it was scary for her to start a blog. And maybe it's scary for you to do that, something like that too. But, that's the second step that has to be taken.
Well, and the interesting thing in the movie is it actually happens in two different time periods. And you also get to see the bold action and the passion and that kind of thing with Julia Child. Yeah. Right? Uh-huh. Okay, get them mixed up all of a sudden. So Julia Child also takes bold action, and she goes and takes a cooking class in France, where everybody, all the people in the class are men, and they look down on her, and they don't think she's serious. And I mean, she just takes this bold action. Then she gets involved with writing a cookbook when she's barely learned to cook herself. I mean, it's on both ends. Both characters in the movie deal with this bold action. It's not even just simple action. It's like bold action for both of them. So it's an interesting thing. And again, bold action for many people is just to even believe in themselves enough to take action towards starting an internet business and actually doing it with people telling them, oh, that's crazy. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that it's interesting in the movie. Like at first, the girl that started the blog, her mom's like, oh, what do you know about that? And like kind of down about it. And then of course later in the movie, the mom's like, hey, how come you haven't been writing? Get that right and go, like all of a sudden as if she was involved, like had been helping her all along or something like that. But yeah, it's definitely both characters taking bold action and finding what bold action you can take for an internet business. And see
what I like, I'm glad you brought that up because the Julia Child character, they show how she actually tried some other things at first. So, they'd moved to Paris and her husband had this big ambassador job or some kind of job at the embassy. And she's like, well, what am I going to do? And they actually showed before she did the cooking classes. I mean, what was it? It was like hat making classes, and I don't know. She tried a few other things, and then finally it was the cooking that. So again, condensed time frame of the movie, but who knows? It might have been weeks or months that she was trying these different things, and then she's like, oh wait, this is what's really going to fulfill me. But yeah, she just kept at it, and I mean, when they finally get to the cooking thing, I mean, you're right. Like it was bold action because like first of all, she walks in and like it's an incredibly famous cooking school, and like the lady who's in charge of it like hates her right away and is like, no, there's no way, and no, you should be in this beginner class over here, and no, and totally just down on her. And then she walks into the class and it's all men, and of course this is I mean, there's always gender issues we're dealing with, but I mean, this is a few decades ago, and even more so back then. It was like, oh, even more of like women have a certain place, and what are you doing in this very serious, and she had to face all that because she knew that's what she really wanted, and so going back to it, she knew what she really wanted, and so that got her through the scary moments of having to take bold action.
Well, and I guess that reminds me too, I wasn't even thinking at the beginning of this to talk about Julia Child and her part in the movie, but her passion. It's funny when she figured out what she wanted to do, which was the cooking. It was played very well. Like you see her like really light up, like, oh my gosh, yes, this is it.
Yeah.
In the same way as the blogging character, she was a writer. That was her big thing, and she was trying to find a way to write and, also find a passion in her writing. And so again, it was really interesting to see both of them find their passion and then completely take that bold action.
Now, number 3 is focus. I mean, you start taking bold action, but of course it needs to be focused. And I think one thing, and I know I've seen myself do this many times, and I still, struggle with this at times. And I definitely see a lot of people who are starting out with, pursuing something new or pursuing an internet business is a lack of focus. And part of that is because when you start striking out and doing your own project, I mean, society teaches us to have a very employee mentality where you go to work and and we're taught about multitasking and all these other things and and things are just handed down to us from the top. And now all of a sudden when we're striking out our own, doing our own thing, and probably the types of personalities that are attracted to entrepreneurship, maybe we all have a little ADD in us. I don't know. But, people forget that focus. Well, they don't forget. They haven't learned yet that focus is so important. And I think one of the biggest things that fights against focus is fear, is the fact that you want so badly, because you are putting yourself out there, maybe, starting a cooking blog or starting whatever this pursuit is, and you're afraid that, oh no, well, what if that one thing doesn't work out and then all of a sudden I have nothing? You'll feel like a real failure. So you're like, well, if I don't put all my eggs in that one basket, but I actually throw out, if I throw 10 irons in the fire, well, then one of them, then I don't have to feel like such a failure. And also then somehow you never get around to really putting yourself out there with the one, idea. You can kind of just like run around like a chicken with your head cut off between the different ideas and feel like you're getting stuff done, but the focus never happens. And unfortunately that really holds you back. And so, even going into this new year, I had to ask myself, I talked a lot about that, hard questions about focus, but, it was clear she was both the characters, very focused on what they were doing. And, so, choosing that one thing and just going for it and giving it all your attention, then yeah, you know what? If at some point you decide I got to cut bait on this idea and you have to shift gears, fine. And so then you shift to the other thing. But putting too many irons in the fire too early, or really at any point, is going to be definitely going to hold you back. So that was another thing that stuck out to me. All right, number 4 is consistency. And I think this was one of the, well, I don't know, these are all big themes, but this one definitely sticks out because, there's some points where a husband's just like, well, what's it going to hurt if you don't go through, or if you don't blog today, or if you don't, cook all the recipes or whatever. And she's like, well, I'll know. And Julia Child will know, or something, she has like this, but the thing, I think at one point, too, her husband's like, well, why do you have to, I can't remember the exact question. He's like, well, why do you have to post about him all the time? I can't remember what he asked, but she's like, you know what? I need something that keeps me doing it consistently every day, or else I won't finish it. Consistency. And so that's the awesome thing is obviously, and it ties in with, the 5th principle. So I guess 4 and 5 kind of go together, consistency and accountability, but, consistency. So every day she's doing at least one recipe and she's blogging a little bit and she's, constantly working at it. And I think that goes a long way to really building up momentum. Your mindset changes. And, this reminds me of